Welcome into our AT&T 5G virtual studios. I am Jillian Sakovits. That is Stephen Keel, and this is Group Chat. What is up, everybody? Keel, it's been too long. Do you know the last time that we hung out?
No, I was thinking about it. It's been a while since we partied a little bit. It's been too long.
Colorado.
Wow.
Yes,
Whoa.
Denver 2020, start of the season. I was trying to think, when did I last get to hang with Stephen Keel? And that's when they flew us out there and helped them kind of kick off their whole season. And then it was all downhill from there between me and my disrespect for the Colorado Rapids, frankly, because when we have to do those preseason predictions, Keel, someone's got to be towards the bottom. And I didn't make them last, but I did put them down there. And then good on them. They have just proved me wrong this year, haven't they?
Listen, predictions are challenging. Predictions in MLS, I feel like, are almost like impossible. But I respect that you're like, listen, this happened. I said it. I owned it. And you are motivation for the Rapids. So you are doing a good deed.
I hope so. And we'll discuss this wild Western Conference, including the Colorado Rapids, in just a little bit. But before we get to that, Keel, let's take a look back at what a wild Wednesday that it was. 45 goals. Can you believe it? In our midweek madness. I was covering Atlanta United taking on New York City FC, and it was all smiles at Mercedes-Benz Stadium for about, I'd say 90 and a half minutes.
Yeah.
And then that kind of changed with an absolute stinger from goody to deflate. New York City got the 1-1 win, but Wednesday all around did not disappoint. We had some upsets. What stood out to you about Wednesday?
Just midweek MLS action being awesome as always. 12 games in like 5 hours span. Like you said, 45 goals. I feel like these midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday night action, there's always going to be, you're good for like a 4-3 game, a 3-2, 90th minute winner. But I think this theme was kind of teams grinding, coming back from being a goal down to find 3 points. You have the Revs, Minnesota, LAFC, Vancouver, all find themselves a goal down, all find themselves with 3 points. So, but listen, midweek MLS action is the best action. I love it. And it's, as a neutral observer, can't get enough of it.
It is highly, highly underrated. But you know what else never disappoints, Stephen Keel, is Decision Day. It might feel like Decision Day this week, but spoiler alert, Decision Day is still 2 weeks away, and we will have you locked right here on all MLS channels. Decision Day Live. It's our watch-along show. We'll have live updating of scores and standings. You can follow along all in one place. It's going to be the usual crew, plus some very special guests, some surprise guests. And Keel, the beauty of doing all of this on the internet is you just never know who's going to pop in. And these standings, Stephen Keel, are changing by the minute. Let's pick it up in the Wild East. Just to paint a picture, in a nutshell, of just how wild this is, I'll use Atlanta United as an example. Heading in to Wednesday against New York City, they were sitting in 5th, and City was actually in 8th, where they are right now. But with a result, or without a result, they could have found themselves anywhere from 4th place, so that's home field advantage, to 8th, out of the playoff picture. And that's how jam-packed it is. But then, Keel, it's not too different over in the West.
No, the West is a similar feel. You kind of have the top 3 with Seattle, SKC, and Colorado kind of separated themselves. But you're right, that 4th spot of hosting a playoff spot, a playoff game, and that 8th spot of being out of the playoffs, 4 points, which is just crazy how tightly contested these standings are. But listen, I got to give a shout out. We've talked about them for a while now. They've been in some great form, won 8 out of the last 12. Vancouver, yo, welcome to that 7th spot, Vancouver. Listen, what they're doing up there is special. Brian White continues just to have a fantastic season, 7 goals in his last 7 games. Whitecaps fans are loving what their team is doing right now. But like you said, these standings literally change by the minutes with goals and teams winning, teams drawing points and stuff. So again, Decision Day this weekend should be fun as always.
2 teams that have pretty much kept their place amongst the top of the Western Conference all year is our game this Saturday. Seattle Sounders, the only team to clinch a playoff berth so far, and Peter Vermes' Sporting Kansas City side. This is going to be an absolute wild showdown, potentially a Western Conference final preview. It's going to be at 3:30 Eastern time on Univision 2DNA, Twitter, and DAZN. Now, this one is wild for so many reasons. First, I love a reason for Peter Vermes to go up against Brian Schmetzer. Just two total OGs. But it's been crazy what the young Hungarian's been doing in Kansas City. Daniel Shalhoub having a heck of a season, 16 goals. He's creeping on Ola Kamara of DC United's 17 in that Golden Boot race. And we could be seeing Raul Ruidiaz, who's also sitting on 16 goals. He was rehabbing the last couple of weeks in Peru. So do we see him off the bench? Does Brian Schmetzer give him a minute since, they're kind of sitting nice, I would say. I know everyone hates to say that, but it's true. I mean, you've clinched a playoff berth, Brian Schmetzer. So we'll see. But I got my fingers crossed for seeing Raul Ruidiaz going up against Daniel Shalhoub. Oh,
yeah, right. Like you said, two MVP contenders, two Golden Boot contenders. I do think with Raul Ruidiaz, we'll kind of see, what train looks like ahead of the match. But I think they'll play it safe because, right, their goal is long-term MLS Cup. They want to make sure he's healthy for the playoffs and everything. But with Seattle, I just expect with Ruidiaz in or not, you're just going to continue to see what they've been doing all year with big players missing. They just are so good, right? They're tough to break down. They impose their will in midfield, and then they create chances going forward. And on top of that, they get contributions from just about every player on the field, whether it be Christian Roldan, Joao Paulo, Leo Chu, whomever it might be. Players just continue to step up. And on the other side, Sporting Kansas City, you mentioned Daniel Shalhoub. I mean, the guy's having a dream season. But just importantly, Johnny Russell, right? Two besties, two buddies. Johnny Russell scored in 6 straight games for him. So I think he is going to be a massive key contributor to this game. And I think when I look at this matchup, it's not going too crazy of a take, but the first goal, whoever scores the first goal is going to be massive. Seattle's undefeated, 15-0-4 when they score first. And I think a lot of that just they're so good defensively. They've only conceded 26 goals, least amount in MLS. They're just, when they get that first goal, they lock it down and they don't give up points. So I think for Sporting Kansas City, they're hopeful that the last time they went to Seattle earlier this year, 3-1 win. Johnny Russell scored in both those games. They'll be hoping they can replicate that this weekend.
And you mentioned that Johnny Russell, Daniel Shalhoub connection. It's like the odd couple in so many ways because Johnny Russell is like the tough Scotsman. And then Daniel Shalhoub is like the young Hungarian, the pipeline of Hungarians as a Hungarian American. I can't help but shout him out. Yeah. And I love that they are really best friends and they make each other better. Johnny Russell, 7 goals in his last 6 games. Shalhoub, 4 in his last 5. And in talking to Peter Vermes, talking to Johnny Russell this year and Daniel Shalhoub, I think what's been the difference maker is Johnny Russell's ownership of this team, being named captain at the start of the season. He said that kind of growing up and the way that he grew up playing, being a captain of a team is just nothing he ever kind of envisioned for himself. And Peter Vermes saw that in him. And I think it's been just such a game changer. And he finds a way to make guys around him better. I think Daniel Shalhoub's comfort with Johnny Russell elevates his game. And it's just been an absolute joy to see. Kansas City, if you're watching, I wouldn't mind one of those t-shirts. I'm just saying. Would you take more like, can we see it again? Would we take more like the Johnny Russell tee or the Shalhoub tee? Like, which one are you feeling more?
I mean, listen, I'm not, any free tee is a good tee. You know what I'm saying? So,
but do you want to be the Hungarian hitman or Johnny Russell?
I feel like, the Hungarian hitman, there's something like, that's like a movie title. So, either one, but that Hungarian hitman, that there's something about it that sounds pretty cool. Which one are you going with?
Hungarian hitman.
Yeah,
I'm the Hungarian hit woman. I feel anyway. Let's switch over the Eastern Conference. New York City taking on DC United also this weekend. And here's the thing about this. When you look at this one, both teams struggling as of late. They've had their exciting moments. New York City FC, like, what happened to you? You were second in the East most of the summer. And everyone was like, whoa, watch out for this team. But including that result against Atlanta, the 1-1 draw this weekend, this is still a side that has 1 win in their last 10, which is Sure, you've had a couple injuries, international duty, but what team hasn't? So I think when you look at this game, for me, whoever can get a result out of this game will find themselves in the playoffs. I don't see an Eastern Conference where we see New York City and DC make it this year. I just don't. So I think this game is of the utmost importance.
Absolutely. And look, you just look at the standings right now. They're both tied on with 41 points in that 7th and 8th spot for that final spot in the East. And you're right. New York City, I mean, they find themselves below the playoff line, I think, for the first time since the first couple of weeks of the season. So one win, last 10 games. They've only scored one goal. And that goal was against Atlanta United this past week in the last 5. So Ronnie Deila has come out and said they've lost a little bit of confidence in that final third, and they have to find that confidence and that form scoring goals if they want to have a chance to make the playoffs, but then make a run in the playoffs. So I think I like to look at things positive. Let's turn a positive spin on things. And
Please.
so I think you do get that goal, you do find a way to get a point in Atlanta against a good team, a tough place to play. It's going to boost yourself a little bit as you come home to play DC. I think also a positive for NYCFC, 3 of their last final 4 games at home. So they're still a good team. They got good players. They just got to find a way to get 3 points.
That 90-minute banger from Thorensen off a free kick, it was so deflating for Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but so energizing for NYCFC. And it was one of those games, Keel, where you look at the score and you're like, oh, a 1-1 draw. But in so many ways for Atlanta United, that felt like a loss. And for New York City FC, even if they've had 1 in their last 10, I think that absolutely should have them feeling like a win. Don't be mad at me, Atlanta United fans, but it's true. The silver lining here is Atlanta United is off this weekend, and they have a week to prepare now for Inter Miami, who's a thorn in their side for whatever reason. Don't let where they fool you and sit.
Yeah, you're right. And I think, even, felt like NYCFC felt like a win for them. Obviously with DC, they had the loss against New England, a tough 3-2 loss where, New England, their stars just showed up. But for DC, I don't know about you. Hernan Losada, I love the style that they play, the Losada ball, the high press, the energy. It moves my soul. But then you listen to him speak, and just kind of how he carries himself off the field is you got to believe that these guys just love playing for him, right? He's coming out being basically saying look, they have nothing to lose. There's no pressure. He wants them to enjoy the moment, to have fun. And as a player myself, is you hear that and you're like, yeah, that's what you want your coach to do. Is he wants you to empower you to go to play freely, to play loose. And I think that's when teams play their best. So, you look at DC and talk about making the playoffs. They played New York City, obviously. Then they played the Red Bulls, and then they played Columbus. The 3 teams directly below them in the standings. So they have destiny. They control their destiny, and it starts this weekend against NYCFC.
You're dead on against Losada. We had him on the call up, and Julian Gressel, double duo. And Julian Gressel says that Losada's re-energized them a little bit. And in talking to him, you can easily see why. The guy's on Instagram. He's posting about passing his driver's test. He's showing you what he's up to. He's hanging out in Disney World. So you get that young, not too far removed from playing days type of coach. At the time when we interviewed him, he was the youngest manager in MLS, but spoiler now, Gonzalo Pineda is, who just celebrated his 39th birthday 2 days ago. So sorry, Hernan Losada, you are 39 and a half. You are no longer the youngest manager in MLS, but it's that vibe. And obviously there's 2 sides that come with that. But when you need a guy to believe in you, who better than a guy like Losada?
Yeah,
incredible what he's done for DC.
And he does that, and you see what he does with Julian Gressel, and even the young players. They speak that he has that being a former player, he just kind of walks in the room with instant credibility, and then you see what he does with the team and how he's getting the best out of everybody. It's no surprise they are where they are in the standings.
No surprise at all. Someone who is a bit of a surprise. Let's talk a little bit about the youngsters. 22 under 22, presented by Body Armor Stock Watch Spotlight. And our spotlight today is on Moses Nyman. He is number 22 on that list, but here is why you should know about him. First off, I'll just say it. David Goss, he was on that Ricardo Pepi train for 3 years, and he is on the Moses Nyman train. So I'm listening to David Goss, but he's a 17-year-old. He's got 2 assists, played over 800 minutes, a product of DC United's academy, mainstay on the first team,
Mm-hmm.
and a young, exciting prospect, perhaps, for the U.S. men's national team, Stephen Keel.
Oh, absolutely. I think, looking at him, he's one of, a lot of people have a lot of high hopes, and he's living up to them, even just at his young age of 17. He's a dynamic midfielder, a number 8 probably, but he's very good on the ball. He's technically very sound. He's cool. He's calm. He's good in possession, so good in possession. And then I like what he does defensively, where he's tough in the tackle. He's great at pressing, and he reads the game extremely well and able to pick off passes, and then obviously to read the opponent's body language to force him into the turnover. So, and then I think what I like as well is off the field, right? So many, when I look at young players, is kind of what's their mentality? Is a little bit of like, oh, I've made it, I'm so good and I don't have anything to improve on, or is it like, these young guys that they have a lot of eyes on them, they've had a lot of praises. And with him, he talks about wanting to learn from his mistakes and just keep progressing. And that's what you want to see. He's not satisfied for where he is. He wants to keep going. And so I have a lot of hope, or, high expectations. And as a U.S. fan, I'm excited. I'm excited that, he's a Liberian-born player. He recently got his U.S. citizenship earlier this year, which makes him eligible for official U.S. games. He would train with the full men's national team before the Gold Cup. And then I expect him to not only increase his role with DC United, but to have a huge role with the U20 men's U.S. men's national team and the qualification cycle for the 2023 World Cup. And he's part of that 2003 class. You mentioned who also is part of that. Ricardo Pepe's in the 2003, Caden Clark, Paxton Aronson, Cade Cowell. So those have
the names you're saying.
Yeah, I know. And that's the 2003s.
Yeah.
I think that I expect them to have a huge role with that team. And I expect them to just continue his upward trajectory. And I think we'll be seeing him a lot more with DC United, and then hopefully in the future with the full men's national team as well.
Exciting times. 22 under 22. We love to read that and learn about the youth. You can check it out on MLSsoccer.com. Let's talk about the Sunday night games, Stephen Keel.
Yes.
We have a really good one in store with Minnesota United taking on LAFC. Just 4 points separating these two in the Western Conference. And wow, who would have thought this is where we're going to be? I mean, Minnesota, not totally surprised, but been surprising to see the struggles of LAFC this season. Adrian Heath told us on the call up that he kind of called out his team a little bit. And he said, I've been surprised with our results, as of late, that he thinks this is a much better team than sometimes they've performed as such. And I don't know what Bob Bradley said. We've tried to get him on the call up, but he hasn't come on yet. So when he does, I will certainly let you know. But who do you think has the advantage in this one?
This is, you look at two teams and coming off in pretty good form, right? They both have won their last 2 games. And there's something about Minnesota late in the season, and they just seem to turn it on. Adrian Heath has said, if he even used the word if they are to get in the playoffs, man, are they dangerous? And I think we've seen in these last couple games just how dangerous they can be. And for me, and I think everyone else, Babelo Reynoso, right, for Minnesota, 2 more assists in this game, and their comeback win against Philadelphia, and the one for Robin Lod's goal was just absolutely phenomenal. The press, the turnover, the technical ability, and then the eyes in the back of his head for the back heel assist. So 10 assists for him on the season. He's that game changer. He's that special player that can just take him deep into the playoffs, and hopefully for Minnesota fans make a run at MLS Cup. But listen, LAFC, I know a lot of people have been like, oh, this is not their year, but they just keep chugging away.
Well, they should, right? Like, if you're not going to impress, you better find some ways to win sometimes, because this is not the LAFC we expected in 2021.
No, but they're finding ways to get results, right? And they go into Dallas, they're down a goal. Bob Bradley makes 2 changes in the first half, and they immediately almost pay dividends. He brings in Raheem Edwards, who draws a penalty. But you look at this, and Chicho, right? Christian Arango, guy's on fire. 3 goals, a hat trick in this game. He's got 11 goals in 13 games. Just if they are to make a run at the playoffs, he's obviously a huge reason. But LAFC fans, they're only 4 points off the playoff line. Vela, Atuesta sounds like they're close to being back. You add them back in the mix. And I tell you what, this team is dangerous. This team is extremely dangerous. So this game should be fun. Absolutely.
And I totally agree with you there that they're finding ways to win. But when we looked at LAFC in March of 2021, before this season began, was that the narrative that we thought we were going to be saying? Oh, they're finding ways to win. You look at what they did this summer, 2-2 draw to Minnesota, losing 4-1 to Kansas City, losing 2-1 to the Quakes, losing 1-0 to Atlanta United, losing 2-1 to Vancouver. I hate to be a Debbie Downer here,
right.
But to me, you can't hyper focus on their last two results. That's who LAFC should have been all year long, getting a 3-1 result over San Jose, getting a 3-2 result over Dallas. So maybe it's just my expectations are too high, but what does it tell you? You mentioned the double substitution midway through the first half there against Dallas. Stephen Keel, you've been on the bench for a happy or angry manager. What does it say about where Bob Bradley's at with this team to make a double substitution in the 26th minute?
Yeah, it's a tactical change that it shows that, listen, if he doesn't feel the team's performing to the standards and what he wants to see it doesn't matter what minute of the game is, he's going to change it. And, you look at the changes made. Raheem Edwards comes in, draws a penalty a few minutes later, boom, the game's tied 1-1. So it's hard to argue with that. But I think you go back to the expectations. I think, and maybe that's where the issue is. I think everyone always has such high expectations, and the club, LAFC, the club themselves have these expectations that it's not just good enough to get into the playoffs. It's and the way they get into it, it's got to be in the form we've seen where they come out and dominate games and dominate teams. And I think things you talk about from the beginning of the year, well, there's a lot that's changed, right? I mean, Carlos Vela's missed quite a bit of time. Diego Rossi has gone. Mark Anthony Kaye is traded to the Rapids. So it's a different team than we've seen in the past. And I think they're kind of just changing things a little bit. But you go back to that double substitution. First, I'll say, as a player,
that never happened to you, right, Keel? You never got taken.
Listen, for me, as always, you never wanted to be substituted in the first half, and then you never wanted to be a substitute and get subbed again. So those are two things that I always try to prime. Luckily, I was a defender, so usually you never really were subbed too often, unless it was late in the game and you needed to go chase a goal or something like that. But yeah, being a double substitution 25, 26 minutes into the game, don't see that too often.
No. Well, it worked out for Bob Bradley and LAFC. Moving on to the Eastern Conference, we got coming up Orlando City taking on New England. I mean, New England, they've already clinched the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. There is no catching them. They got a 20-point lead over Nashville.
Crazy.
It's just been wild what they've done. And Orlando right now at 46 points, holding on to that final home field advantage spot in the first round. Even though with Philly on 46 points, who's in third place. So it is jam-packed. Atlanta United 3 points behind there. So Orlando wants to win this game to help solidify themselves in that top 4. So how do you feel like New England approaches this game? Bruce Arena's already told us that he doesn't even think the Supporter Shield really matters this year, based on scheduling, that he thinks there should be an Eastern Conference Supporter Shield winner and a Western Conference Supporter Shield winner. So we know where Bruce's head is at in terms of that. Bruce knows a thing or two about winning an MLS Cup. So how do you think Bruce approaches this game? Is Bruce chilling?
Listen, I don't think Bruce is chilling. I don't think the team is chilling. I think, with these remaining games, if players need rest, they may rest a game or two, but you still look at it. I think individually and collectively, right? You still have individuals, Carlos Heel, for their eyes, chasing down an MVP. You look at Gustavo Bo trying to chase down the Golden Boot. So there's things to play for these guys individually in these remaining games. And collectively, they may not fully admit it, but I think within that locker room as a player, you see that single season points record, LAFC, 72 points in a season, New England at 69. It's within their grasp. And so I think as a team, you want to be that team that says, listen, we had the most points in a season, regardless of the scheduling and all that stuff. It is what it is. So I think individually, collectively, they will still be wanting to come out to get all 3 points. And like you said, Bruce Arena, he's coached teams that have won the Supporter Shield twice won the Supporters Shield, gone on to win MLS Cup. And we all know how important it is that you continue to play good soccer heading into the playoffs. So I don't expect him to take his foot off the pedal. And it's a veteran group, right? You have veteran players on the field. So I think they're going to come out. I don't foresee any chill with the New England Revolution. I fully expect them to keep pushing.
Me asking if Bruce Arena is going to chill is just me really being facetious and just seeing if he's listening to this show today, because we all know Bruce Arena has pretty much no chill, unless maybe he's taken some time off in Manhattan Beach. But I think that what you said there, Keel, is so important, because we have to remember we are at October 22nd right now. The MLS Cup playoffs kick off. It's October 22nd, like in the November 20s. So you look at it like, okay, they obviously can't chill for these next few games. They have a couple things that they're going for. You mentioned Bo. He's at 15 goals. Ola Kamara, who's currently leading the Golden Boot race, is at 17. So he's only 2 off the pace. But the other thing is that you've got this 2-week stretch till decision day, and then you've got a 2-week international break. So New England has a month before the playoffs. And so they've got to keep some level of momentum. They've got to keep what's made them exciting all year and just made them simply elite. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why are they going to change the way that they're playing? To answer my own stupid question. Let's move on to Orlando City. Now, this is a team, when I look at the schedule in the Eastern Conference, I think they have one of the toughest schedules ahead. They've got New England, like we mentioned. Then they've got Columbus, Nashville, and then Montreal, who's been putting in some good results as of late. What do you think is in store for this Orlando City side down the stretch? Because we've seen two sides of this team so much this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for Orlando, first of all, I love Oscar Pereira. Everyone knows I have so much love and respect for him. And I think he does such a good job of kind of focusing on the game and making sure the team is just focused, and anyone who's involved, doesn't matter who you are, their priority is that game right there. So I don't see them kind of, looking ahead. And with all 4 of these games, there's no one you can look ahead because they're all good quality teams. But unbeaten 4, so they're in a decent run of picking up points. And I think, Orlando fans happy Cash Mueller back on the score sheet. Continue to get him going. And I think they'll be hoping that Nani, he's been playing well at times, but I think they want to, can he get back to that lighten up the box score like we saw in the beginning of the year, where the dude was literally scoring like a goal every game. It was unbelievable. So Orlando fans, I think, will hope that he can kind of get back to that end product. But there's a lot of positives, right? I mean, you got Pato. Finally, he made his return, albeit just for a couple minutes. But can they get him healthy towards the end of the season, just to give them another added piece going forward? So, I think that Cash Mueller, Daryl DK, all positive signs for Orlando City.
Certainly, as Orlando City is just one of so many teams in action this weekend. We got a full slate ahead. Seattle, like we mentioned, taking on Kansas City, Toronto, Montreal, Philadelphia, Nashville. That's one I certainly have my eyes on. Yeah. Who else do you have your eyes on this weekend, Keel?
That Philadelphia Nashville game. I mean, those are the two teams, like you said, New England's kind of pulled away, but those two teams, hopefully they can, capture that second seed, but that should be an absolute great game.
And Jim Curtin, if you're listening, wear your call-up hoodie.
That's right.
It's good luck, I promise.
That's right.
And then finishing off the day on Saturday, Colorado, Portland. What up, Colorado? San Jose, Vancouver, LA, Dallas. And then, this one is going to be so fun. Austin, Houston on Sunday. And then, like we just talked about, Orlando and New England. Woo! I'm excited.
There's so many good games, right? And there's so many, you can pick out 4, 5, 6 of those games. Are like, these have huge implications for how things will finish out the season. So just sit back and enjoy all the beauty that is MLS this weekend.
Decision day, all day, every day these next 2 weeks. Thank you so much for joining us. Jillian Sakovits filling in for Susanna Collins, who is on assignment in Disney this week. So thank you to her for doing that. My bud will be back and joining me on the call up this Tuesday. And Stephen Keel, it was so good to see you, my friend.
We got to do this more than once every 18 months, right?
They don't care. I think we'll try to improve our rotation, Stephen Keel. This is Group Chat. Thank you guys for joining us, and get pumped for an awesome Saturday and Sunday of games.
See ya.